It's John Trout, Cider Blossom Orchard. It's early spring. It's March 20th today, Saturday morning, March 20th. I hope everyone had a great winter and that this early spring finds you healthy and happy. We've got some early spring chores going on in the orchard. I've been doing a lot here the last couple of months actually, and thought I'd post a video just so anybody that was interested could see where the orchard's headed this spring. The high density plantings that I planted 2 years ago that I grafted, they required the most work really this winter. And in the past couple of months, I've been working pretty hard on these trees. And what I've been doing is tying down feathers. So this would be a feather, basically just a limb off of the tree. That I can't have this limb growing up. It will become an overbearing branch. You bend it down, you take the vigor out of that limb, it will produce fruit buds, as I've learned, and produce fruit, which will slow everything down, make a nice fruiting branch for a couple of years, and then it'll be removed from the tree. But that's what I've been doing on the Golden Delicious and the Crimson Crisp row over here. You can see the vigor in these trees. And we'll look at just how different these trees look from those just a few down here. We've got probably 10 to 12 trees right here that have got a lot of vigor, look great. And then we've got some that are pretty much just whips yet. And I really have to attribute that to the rootstock itself. When it came in, these were grafted in place. Well, actually these were bench grafted and then planted. But I think it's probably just what kind of roots did these trees have under them and what kind of push did they have up out of the ground. And we're seeing that difference now. That's the difference between grafting your own trees, getting the rootstock in, bench grafting, or planting the rootstock and grafting in place a year later. That's the difference between doing that and buying the trees already grafted and already grown up to some extent. And then here would be a replacement tree where year 2, I still couldn't get it to go. I think that one might have snapped off when I drug a hose over it during a dry spell last year. And then we just got a lot of whips right here yet. So these trees will grow this summer. Hopefully we'll get these up near the top wire. You can see some of the more vigorous trees have got fruiting spurs on them. That's a fruit spur right there. That'll produce a flower here in a few weeks. And some of these more vigorous trees I will let put on a few apples this year. Here you can see a cut made to take out a larger branch that was competing with the central leader. We don't want those. So took that one out, but very minimal pruning on the tall spindle trees here this winter. Another item I did, another task out here for the winter, was to take all the orange ribbon off that I had used to tie these trees to the trellis. And I removed those orange ribbons and replaced them with these clips. I think I got 1,000 of these clips for $50, and they work very nice in this 12.5 gauge wire. But really a necessity to clip these trees to the wire to keep them from falling over as they put on. One apple is going to take this tree over if it's on there this summer. So you want to clip the trees to the wire. Talking about wires, somewhere down here, I had an unusual wire break. And I'm not going to find it now that I've got you on camera. But my 12.5 gauge wire broke. And I can find no logical explanation for that. It broke just, here's the splice I put in. And if this doesn't hold, I'll have to just redo the whole stretch. That's all the extra wire I had to pull into those splices. But it broke right in the middle of the wire. I don't know if it got kinked along the way and weakened or what, but I was a little disappointed to see that. I've got 14 gauge wire on another trellis that has never offered to do that. Here's a very vigorous Crimson Crisp tree that will produce flower buds here in a few weeks. Crimson Crisp is a later bloomer for me, but look at the vigor in this tree. It's practically up. It's probably 9 feet right now. Planted 2 years ago about this time as a brand new grafted rootstock. Now this tree got some vigor. Some of these others did not. So I really think it has to be the rootstock. And to illustrate my point in buying a tree that's already grafted and grown, these are 2 pink ladies that I bought and stuck in the row last year just to see how pink lady would do for me. I'm doing that with a lot of, well, different apple varieties now, instead of planting a whole row of pink ladies and not knowing what's going to happen there. Plant a couple, see how they do in my area, see how much I like them, and then decide if I want to plant more. So these pink ladies, both are very similar looking trees. You can see there, they both came from the nursery as pretty much identical trees. For first year growth, I'm very happy with that. I would consider that vigorous growth. And I anticipate by the end of this summer, they'll be nearing where the top wire would be. They're on the end of the trellis here, so we really don't have a top wire for them. We'll have another wire up there, but they won't have wires up to that 10-foot mark. They will. This one here looks like it's going to spit out a flower there, and there might be a couple here and there, but I may let them put on a couple of fruits this year. Certainly not many. I'm still in the tree growing mode right now. So that's a pink lady on G41, a couple of good looking trees planted 1 year ago today. Would produce apples this summer if I let them, and certainly should be 9 to 10 feet tall by the end of this summer on this trellis system. Pretty hard frost last night. I was glad to see it. I'm always up for slowing spring down just a little bit. I don't like early springs. They always scare me with the frost and the freezes. So let's go take a look at some pruned semi-dwarfs, and then I'll let you go. Here is a Fuji. This tree did not produce good fruit last year. The fruit were small. I thought they didn't have much taste. And they weren't pretty. So I was a little disappointed in this Fuji tree last year. I'm not sure what was up with it. It's on a G30 rootstock. So you can just see it's just loaded with fruit buds. It's gonna flower heavily. I'll thin the fruit more this year. To me, the tree didn't have a whole lot of vegetative growth last year, so I'm gonna lean a little more towards the vegetative growth this year. But the point here is this semi-dwarf G30 Fuji tree is pruned. Now, I'm happy with the pruning. You can see we don't have overly long branches in the top, but not over pruned either. And then our permanent scaffolds here in the bottom, and I did remove a rather large one there that was growing on top of another. That's a Fuji on G30, and then we've got a couple of Liberties here. Again, if your backyard tree is more round than it is triangular, then you probably didn't prune hard enough. That seems to be where a lot of backyard growers can go wrong, is they just are afraid to cut limbs out of the tree. And some say I'm a little overzealous in my pruning, but I don't like overgrown trees. They're harder to pick, they're harder to spray, and if you can get the trees to crop, you don't have a whole lot of problem with vegetative growth coming back. But you can see a lot of that on that central leader is fruiting wood. That's going to make apples. This is a Liberty tree. It did not produce very many fruits last year. The freeze got it pretty good. It's an early bloomer. I've got a dormant spray and a copper spray to put on today. It is a little bit late. Things just got ahead of me this week. But I'm gonna go for it, especially on the Liberty trees. I'm not so worried about them having any real issues. But there you can see the central leader, and when I say issues, I mean with the copper. It can sometimes russet fruit and have some problems, and if you spray it too late. But I think we're still okay right now. I've put it on 1/2-inch green before and not been disappointed. So a bud stage, 1/4-inch green, And you'll go from that to a 1/2 inch green, and I don't really see that on the Liberty. Gold Rush is there. Gold Rush has a 1/2 inch green. Still got prunings to pick up. The orchard's a bit of a mess. Still got things to pick up before the first mowing out here. Here's a huge Golden Delicious. This tree is overgrown. I prune it pretty good every year. Not disappointed with the tree. It didn't produce many fruits last year. It can tend to be biennial if you overcrop it. I'm not sure that I've ever overcropped this tree, but it's not been a strong producer for me, but I'm not cutting it down anytime soon. But you can see we don't have large limbs in the top of the tree. This is after pruning. So don't be afraid to cut your trees back. And there's certainly a science to it that I'm still learning. But don't be afraid to cut your trees back. Okay, we're gonna wrap it up for now. Spring is here. Thanks for watching.